This morning marks the fourth message in our fall series we're calling Legacy. And, just as I think about it week over week, it's an uncomfortable subject that I'm asking us to think about. And part of the reason why it's uncomfortable is because I'm asking us to evaluate the life we're living today in light of its consequences and its impact on tomorrow. And the reality is most of us just don't want to do that. Right? Most of us want to live our lives focusing on the fun we're having today, and we don't want to think about the impact that our fun today is going to have on people tomorrow. Don't weigh me down. Don't bum me out. Don't bring me down by making me think about the things I'm doing today and the impact and consequences it's going to have on the people around me. That's going to ruin my fun, and I don't want to ruin my fun. And so this is an uncomfortable consideration that I'm asking us to look into this fall, but I'm hoping that as Christ followers, we want better than that for our own lives, and for this morning's consideration especially, we want to surround ourselves with people who want better than that for their lives as well. Our theme this morning is this: if you want to live a life that leaves a godly legacy, you have to choose your friends wisely, because most people will not outgrow the company that they keep. Let me say that again. It's really important. You want to live a life that matters. You have to surround yourself with people who also want to live a life that matters, because most people will not outgrow the company that they keep. How do I know that? Because the Bible actually says that. Whoever walks with the wise becomes wise, but the companion of fools will suffer harm. The scriptures recognize a couple, dynamics just inherent to humanity. One of them is that we are designed to live in community with other people, right? Humans are social creatures. The Bible recognizes that, and we recognize it every day as we live our lives and wanting to live lives in community with other people, share our experiences with other people. So we're going to walk with someone, right? We're going to companion with someone, and those that we choose to surround ourselves with, if those relationships, if those friendships are genuine, those people are going to exert influence over our lives. Sometimes that influence that they exert over us by nature of their proximity to us, or the nature of their friendship with us, sometimes that influence is positive, sometimes that influence is negative. And in a lot of relationships, it's often a combination of both. The relationship between David, whom we're looking at as our example through this entire series, and Saul, who was then the king of Israel, Saul's oldest son, Jonathan, gives us an opportunity to look into some of these dynamics that mark friendships, right, for good or for bad. And so I want to just summarize chapters 18 and 19, because we're skipping those to get to chapter 20, but we need to realize from chapter 16, where we began looking at David's life, where he was anointed by Samuel to be the next king of Israel, and stepping into chapter 20, there's been about 5 years that have taken place, right? So a lot of things happen over the course of 5 years. Chapter 17 is David's battle with Goliath, and chapter 18 begins with these words, essentially. I'm paraphrasing, of course, but Jonathan, Saul's son, Jonathan, who is a prince of Israel, he's going to be king after his father Saul if everything proceeded the way normal things happen in the world at this time. He sees David's victory over Goliath. He sees David's faith. He sees David's courage, and it resonates in Jonathan's heart. And the text actually says that their souls were knit together. That's unmistakable language of a deep friendship that developed between these two men. Let me just say this again as we think about these dynamics inherent within friendships. The deepest friendships are not just built on affinity, right? The deepest friendships are not just built on the fact that we have some things in common. We'll see later that does matter, right? That is important. But deepest friendships are always based on love. Love. We'll see Jonathan in those chapters come to David and take off everything that was upon him, his royal robes, his sword, everything about him that marked him as royalty, that marked him as a prince of Israel, and give all of that to David. Why would he do that? It's because Jonathan looked at his dad, Saul, and the kind of man that he was, and he looked at David and the kind of young man that David was, and Jonathan knew David's going to be the next king of Israel, not me. And so Jonathan at one point goes to David and gives him everything that was his, that marked his royalty, as a sign that says he's celebrating David's victories. He's celebrating David's accomplishments with him, and recognizes God's hand upon David's life and what that would mean for him. I was reminded of an old saying that essentially says this: pay attention to the people who don't clap when you win, right? Pay attention to the people who refuse to celebrate when you win. Pay attention to the people who refuse to celebrate your accomplishments. Friends celebrate the accomplishments and successes of one another. They don't get jealous over each other. And what this means for Jonathan is saying, listen, I'm supposed to be king next, right, by the world standards, but I know it's going to be you, and I want you to know that I'm still for you. I'm not jealous of you. I'm not envious of you. Friends aren't envious of one another. They celebrate one another. Chapter 19 opens with Saul commanding Jonathan to kill David. It's literally to Jonathan and all the people of the royal household. If you get an opportunity to kill David, I'm telling you, you have to kill David. Jonathan stands up for his friend David and confronts his dad. Again, thinking about these dynamics inherent within friendships, friends ought to stand up for one another. Now, let me be clear to say this. Being someone's friend does not mean having an unwillingness to admit that your friend is capable of sin. Right? That's a warped kind of friendship that refuses to consider evidence, refuses to acknowledge that your friend, right, this person that you love, this person that you've connected your life to, it's a foolishness to think that to be ignorant of the fact that there's still the possibility of sin in them. What it does mean, though, with a deep, and I would argue biblical friendship based on 1 Corinthians 13, and that fact that love hopes all things and believes all things, endures all things, and so on, right? That what it does mean is that when someone approaches you with an accusation against your friend, that your starting point ought to be, that doesn't sound like the person I know. So I'm going to look into what you're saying before I react to what you're saying. Why? Because love hopes all things and believes all things, and so you believe the best about your friend. Doesn't mean you're ignorant of their faults, but it does mean that, hey, I'm going to have to look into this myself. I'm not just going to take your word for it, because that doesn't sound like the person I know. Right? Friends should at least stand up for each other in that way. And then Saul has a change of heart toward David. Everything is calm for a while, and then it all turns on its head again. Saul throws a javelin at David, tries to pin him to the wall and kill him. David is able to escape from that. At one point, Saul sends assassins to David's home, but David's wife, Michal, who is actually Saul's daughter and Jonathan's sister, warns David and makes, it's the familiar movie thing, right? She actually makes a little dummy out of straw that looks like someone's laying in the bed, but David has escaped out the window and run for his life, and the assassins come in and, they stab the dummy and so on to kill him, but David, of course, is spared. He runs, he flees to go to Samuel for protection, and Saul says, 2 different groups of assassins to kill him when he's with Samuel, and they both fail. So Saul goes himself to kill David, and he also fails. So things are bad. And as we step into chapter 20, David is going to leave Samuel to take counsel once again from his friend Jonathan. So let's look at the first 17 verses. Then David fled from Naioth and Ramah and came and said before Jonathan, "What have I done? What is my guilt and what is my sin before your father that he seeks my life?" And he said to him, "Far from it. You shall not die. Behold, my father does nothing, either great or small, without disclosing it to me. And why should my father hide this from me? It is not so." But David vowed again, saying, "Your father knows well that I have found favor in your eyes, and he thinks, 'Do not let Jonathan know this, lest he be grieved. But truly, as the Lord lives and as your soul lives, there is but a step between me and death.' Then Jonathan said to David, 'Whatever you say, I will do for you.' And David said to Jonathan, 'Behold, tomorrow is the new moon, and I shall not fail to sit at table with the king. But let me go, that I may hide myself in the field till the third day at evening. If your father misses me at all, then say, David earnestly asked leave of me to run to Bethlehem, his city, for there is a yearly sacrifice there for all the clan. If he says, good, it will be well with your servant, but if he is angry, then know that harm is determined by him. Therefore, deal kindly with your servant, for you have brought your servant into a covenant of the Lord with you. But if there is guilt in me," David says to Jonathan, "just kill me yourself, for why should you bring me to your father?" And Jonathan said, "Far be it from you. If I knew that it was determined by my father that harm should come to you, would I not tell you?" Then David said to Jonathan, "Who will tell me if your father answers you roughly?" And Jonathan said to David, "Come, let us go out into the field." So they both went out into the field. And Jonathan said to David, "The Lord, the God of Israel, be witness. When I have sounded out my father about this time tomorrow or the third day, behold, if he is well disposed towards David, shall I not then send and disclose it to you? But should it please my father to do you harm, the Lord do so to Jonathan and more also, if I do not disclose it to you and send you away, that you may go in safety. May the Lord be between you and May the Lord be with you as he has been with my father. If I am still alive, show me the steadfast love of the Lord, that I may not die. And do not cut off your steadfast love from my house forever, when the Lord cuts off every one of the enemies of David from the face of the earth." Now notice 16 and 17. "And Jonathan made a covenant with the house of David, saying, May the Lord take vengeance on David's enemies. And Jonathan made David swear again by his love for him, for he loved him as he loved his own soul." Now, there's a lot in this text here, but my focus is really just on verse 17 to begin. And it's clear that Jonathan and David loved one another. And it says so very clearly in verse 17. For he loved him as he loved his own soul. They had pledged their lives one to another. And I want to ask this question. Does hearing these two men declare their love for one another make you feel uncomfortable? Does it make you feel happy? Or does it make you feel envious? Does it make you feel uncomfortable because you're just not sure how to handle two men saying to one another that they loved one another? Does it make you feel happy because you know what that is and you feel like you've got that in your life, whether you're a woman to another woman or a man to another man? Or does it make you feel envious because you don't have it, but you want it? I would say this: it should not make us feel uncomfortable. The Bible's very clear that this kind of deep love one for another is part of the point of Christian relationships. You remember Mark 12? The lawyer comes to Jesus and they're trying to tempt him, to get him to trip himself up with his words, that they could have something to accuse him with, some reason to justify their hatred towards him and their desire to kill him and, take him out of the picture because he was making life very uncomfortable for the Pharisees and the religious elites in Israel. And so they come and say, "Teacher, tell us which is the greatest commandment in the Bible?" And Jesus says, "The greatest commandment is this: Hear, O Israel, the Lord your God, the Lord is one, and you shall love him with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength." And then he says this: "The second is like unto it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself." You shall love your neighbor as yourself. David loved Jonathan as he loved his own soul. Jonathan loved David as he loved his own soul. And listen, loving your neighbor as yourself can certainly mean a lot of things, but I think it ought to mean this as well: that we actually love other people the way we love ourselves, right? The affection that we have, we pass it on, we give it away. We have deep, abiding relationship marked by love. Love. Casual, surface-level relationships that never engage the heart isn't that. casual, surface level relationships that never get past fishing, that never get past hunting, that never get past quilting, that never get past the weather, isn't that? I don't know what it is about New Yorkers. We love to talk about the weather, right? I don't know if that's true everywhere else in the country. I don't know if that's true everywhere else in the world, but if you're new to New York, I can tell you that's a thing here. We love it. We can have half-hour conversations about the fact that it rained last week, it rained today. Remember what it was like a year ago? It wasn't raining a year ago. It was great. The flood of 72, right, happened in June. We still talk about it. That ain't this. If your relationships are always kept on the perpetually casual level, that they never go to the level of the heart, you're never willing to go deep with people, that's not what the Scripture calls us to. That's not what Christian relationships are supposed to look like. These men give us a picture of it. They loved each other. I would contend that every one of us wants that at some level. We all want to feel connected. We all want to feel accepted by people. We all want to feel valued by others. We all want to have a place where we feel like we belong. Think about popular television. You remember back in the day, if you're my age, you remember Cheers? Norm would walk in the bar, right? It's all centered on the bar, and Norm would walk in the bar, and what would everybody do? Norm, right? Everybody in uniform. As soon as he walked in, right? We all want that. We all want a place like that, where we're known by people. We're loved by people. Friends was a huge hit, right? And for 10 years, right, the country, every Thursday night, right? Every Thursday, everybody would stop and tune in and watch Friends. Why? Because we felt like we were part of that group. Seinfeld, the wacky group of 4 friends, right? We tuned in and we watched because we ended up feeling like we kind of know these people and they're our friends and we're living these lives with them. You look at sort of more modern shows. Remember there was a show called Two Broke Girls? No one's going to watch a show called One Broke Girl, right? Because that's just sad. The cartoon, I'm not advocating these shows, by the way. I'm just pointing them out culturally. The cartoon Family Guy. Nobody's going to watch a cartoon about a lonely guy, right? But we'll watch Family Guy. We all want to feel like we've got this place where we belong, where people know us. And I think women want that with other women. This goes beyond a spouse. I think women want that with other women. How do I know that? Because I've heard from many women over the years where they'll say things like this, I just wish I had a friend. What are you talking about? You got all kinds, this person, well, yeah, I mean somebody that I can just call up, somebody that I can just go have coffee with, somebody that's I can just hang out with. I just want that kind of friend. I just not just a church friend. I want but I think men want that too. I know in my life, I want men in my life, to use the vernacular that I use, I want men in my life that I know they'll climb the mountain with me. That they'll be there with me. We do life together. I know them and they know me. I know their warts, they know my warts. They're not running for the door, I'm not running for the door. I think we all want those kinds of relationships. And listen, if you're a guy, because I don't think any woman would argue with that point, but I think there might be some guys here this morning that say, I don't want that. I'd say you're a liar. I'd say you want it. You don't have it, and you've probably given up on the possibility that you could. And so you've fooled yourself into thinking, I don't need that. I'm a lone wolf. I just do me. I just have me and it's just me. I'm happy with me. No, you're not. You're a mess. We all want these things in our life. It's part of the point of the church. It's part of the point of redeemed relationships, not only to enrich our lives and to enrich the lives of others, but listen, it's the church's calling card to a lost world. What does Jesus say in John 13? By this all men will know you're my disciples, not by your evangelism, not by your sound doctrine, not by your outreach, not by your candlelight services. By this all men will know you're my disciples. By what? By your love one for another. These kind of redeemed relationships where people enter into real community with one another, real deep community based on mutual love. This is the calling card to a lost world that is hungry for it. And so you get young men turn into gangs because gangs will give it to you for a while. Going to drop houses and taking meth and drug because, that drug community, they'll support you for a while. One of the reasons I knew I needed to get out of the Army, because it was going bad for me when I was in El Paso, Texas, the Lariat Lounge. I was at the Lariat Lounge every night. Listen, for a year, I went to that bar every night when I wasn't in the field. I closed it down with the band. We'd close it to 2 o'clock. I'd leave at 3:30 or 4 because I'm still drinking with the band and all. I just wanted a place where I fit in. And they wanted somebody who would give them money in exchange for beer. They weren't real friendships. But it was better than sitting in the barracks alone. We all want this. I would have you notice, though, in the 17 verses that we've read, Jonathan and David's friendship, as deep as it was, it's being tested in this text. David accuses Jonathan of not caring that Saul wants to kill him. And Jonathan responds to that by saying, just tell me what you need me to do to prove that I'm on your side. Tell me what you need me to do to prove that I'm for you. And this is where the text goes all kinds of wrong, because David in the end asked Jonathan to lie for him. David gets manipulative. And listen, if you're in a relationship now with someone and you're in a friendship with someone right now and they're trying to manipulate you, that relationship has already turned south. It's already gotten toxic. This relationship is getting toxic. Notice what the scripture says back into Proverbs. Proverbs 27:6, faithful are the wounds of a friend, profuse are the kisses of an enemy. Part of what it means to be a true biblical friend is you're willing to tell your friend the truth even when they don't want to hear it. You're willing to tell them the truth even when that truth is hard. Notice Proverbs 27:9. Oil and perfume make the heart glad, and the sweetness of a friend comes from his earnest counsel. The sweetness of a friend doesn't come because he sits back and while you complain and why you do this and why they just nod their head at you and they go, That's not the sweetness of it. The sweetness of a friend is the one who's willing to challenge us, right? Who's willing to speak truth into our lives, who's willing to tell us that we're wrong. Listen, the narrative portions of Scripture only tell us what happened. They don't tell us what should have happened. And what should have happened in this moment is Jonathan should have stood up to his friend and said, I'm not doing that. You want me to lie for you? You want me to tell my dad that you've gone back home to Bethlehem because there's this big feast when David's already told him what he's going to do? He's going to hide out in the field for 3 days. Jonathan says, I'm not doing that. I'm not going to lie for you. I'm not going to sin for you. David, you're thinking wrong thoughts. You've let your fear in this whole situation pull you in a bad direction. Jonathan should have been the one to throw him a lifeline and try to pull him back towards truth, but he doesn't. He values the friendship more than he does the truth, and he gives in. And he agrees to lie for him. But listen, love doesn't sin. Love doesn't encourage sin. Love doesn't ask other people to sin. And love doesn't use sin as a litmus test. That's childish. That's the heart of a child that says, loving me means saying yes to everything I ask you to do. That's a toddler's heart. Listen. When you value the friendship more than you value truth, not only have you already lost the truth, but you've already lost the friendship. Love is willing to put that friendship on the line for the sake of what is right. Notice what happens next, 18 to 23. Then Jonathan said to him, tomorrow is the new moon, and you will be missed because your seat will be empty. The king expected everyone in his court to be there on these major days. On the third day, go down quickly to the place where you hid yourself when the matter was in hand, and remain beside the stone heap. And I will shoot 3 arrows to the side of it, as though I shot at a mark. And behold, I will send the boy, saying, go find the arrows. If I say to the boy, look, the arrows are on this side of you, take them, then you are to come, for as the Lord lives, it is safe for you, there is no danger. But if I say to the youth, look, the arrows are beyond you, then go, for the Lord has sent you away. And as for the matter of which you and I have spoken, behold, the Lord is between you and me forever. So the plan is pretty simple. Jonathan says, I'm going to talk to my dad. If everything's good, I'll shoot 3 arrows. I'll tell the boy that they're near. That's your signal. Come on back. It's okay. If I say to the boy, the arrows are beyond you, that's the signal that says, yeah, my dad really does want you dead. You need to run for your life. Simple plan. Notice what happens, verse 24. So David hid himself in the field, and when the new moon came, the king sat down to eat food. The king sat on his seat as at the other times, on the seat by the wall. Jonathan sat opposite, and Abner sat by Saul's side, but David's place was empty. Yet Saul did not say anything that day, for he thought, something has happened to him. He is not clean. Surely he is not clean. I would have you notice verse 26, Saul's mindset. Saul is spiraling, and you see it in the repetition of the words. Something has happened to him. He is not clean. He's trying to convince himself of this. He's not sure. Something may be up. He's trying to convince himself, surely he's not. That's got to be the reason he's not here. Because if it's any other reason, I'm killing this kid. Verse 27. But on the second day, the day after the new moon, David's place was empty, and Saul said to Jonathan, his son, why has not the son of Jesse come to the meal either yesterday or today? Jonathan answered Saul, David earnestly asked leave of me to go to Bethlehem. He said, let me go, for our clan holds a sacrifice in the city, and my brother has commanded me to be there. So now if I have found favor in your eyes, let me get away and see my brothers. For this reason he has not come to the king's table. Then Saul's anger was kindled against Jonathan. He said to him, you son of a perverse, rebellious woman. That's tough. Because he's talking about one of his wives, right? Do I not know that you have chosen the son of Jesse to your shame and to the shame of your mother's nakedness? For as long as the son of Jesse lives on the earth, neither you nor your kingdom shall be established. Therefore send and bring him to me, for he shall surely die. Then Jonathan answered Saul, his father. He stands up for his friend again. Why should he be put to death? What has he done? But Saul hurled his spear at him to strike him. So Jonathan knew his father was determined to put David to death. You think? And Jonathan rose from the table in fierce anger and ate no food the second day of the month, for he was grieved for David because his father had disgraced him. Not only is Saul spiraled so far that he's willing to kill David at any cost, but he's so angry at Jonathan because of his love for David, his friendship for David, standing up for David, he tries to kill his own son. Now, notice what happens next, the rest of the chapter. In the morning, Jonathan went out into the field to the appointment with David, and with him a little boy. And he said to his boy, run and find the arrows that I shoot. As the boy ran, he shot an arrow beyond him. And when the boy came to the place of the arrow that Jonathan had shot, Jonathan called after the boy and said, is not the arrow beyond you? And Jonathan called after the boy, hurry, be quick, do not stay. So Jonathan's boy gathered up the arrows and came to his master, but the boy knew nothing. Only Jonathan and David knew the matter. That was the signal. Verse 40, and Jonathan gave his weapons to his boy and said to him, go and carry them to the city. And as soon as the boy had gone, David rose from beside the stone heap and fell on his face to the ground and bowed 3 times, and they kissed one another and wept with one another, David weeping the most. And Jonathan said to David, go in peace, because we have sworn both of us in the name of the Lord, saying, the Lord shall be between me and you, and between my offspring and your offspring forever. And he rose and departed, and Jonathan went into the city. This last part of the text is just steeped in sorrow. These 2 men who love one another deeply, their souls are knit together, are parting from one another. And as you read the rest of Jonathan and David's narrative together, they will only come face to face one other time before Jonathan dies in battle. There's no FaceTiming, there's no video chatting. this is for these two men essentially goodbye. And one of the most tragic things about this text is it's actually been hijacked. So I need to take a moment and address that. There is a movement within larger Christianity, especially here in the United States, that's called progressive Christianity. You may not have heard of it, but if you're not part of, if you ever leave this area, if you ever leave Breezeport Baptist Church, you ever find yourself looking for another church and you're looking through their documents or you're listening to them preach and so on, and they would identify as progressive Christians, you need to run from them. Because progressive Christianity is not Christianity. Progressive Christianity are those people who like to come together on Sundays, they like to have conversations about Jesus, but they reject all the moral commands of the Bible. And they have taken this passage in 1 Samuel 20 and the relationship between Jonathan and David, and they would say this, see, these two men are gay. They love one another and they kiss one another. So homosexuality cannot be bad. There's homosexuality in the Bible that God affirms between these two men. Listen, that is false. That's not what is happening in this text. These two men are demonstrating the depth of their love one for another, listen now, in a culturally accepted manner. You can still see men kissing each other upon their greeting and upon their departure in Europe, in Asia, in the Middle East. Men will come up to each other, they'll kiss one another on one cheek, sometimes both cheeks, right? And in many parts of the world, men who are very close friends with other men will walk in very public places holding hands with one another. I was somewhat taken aback, I'll admit, when I went to Saudi Arabia and then on into Iraq in the first Gulf War, and we were given cultural classes before we deployed from Germany on what we could expect when we were there, and there's all kinds of things associated with trying to live in the Middle East without offending people unnecessarily, and like you never hand anybody anything with your left hand because the left hand is considered unclean. Everything has to be done. You never show anybody from a Middle Eastern culture the sole of your foot because that's a grave insult, saying you're less than, right? You're dismissing them and so on and so forth. And one of these things was you will see men who are very close to one another, show their affection for one by walking around in public holding hands. This is a picture of myself and this is Mac. So his last name was McDonald. If you're in the military, you always call each other by your last names, and so he's Mac, right? So me and Mac, he lived in the room right next door to me in the barracks. We were teammates, so we drove the same truck. So I was either driving and he was shotgun, or I was shotgun and he was driving. So we essentially lived together, we worked together, we partied together, we did everything together. Mac was my best friend, all the way through the Gulf War and back again, and so on. We did everything together. I knew about his family, I knew about his upbringing, he knew about my family, he knew about my upbringing. We were very close together as friends, right? I literally said to him one day, I will pledge I will die for you. And he made the same promise to me. I remember we were at KKMC one time, King Khalid Military Community in Saudi Arabia. We'd gotten to go back for a while. We're seeing all these Saudi Arabian military guys. They're all in the Saudi Arabian army, and they're walking around holding hands. And so I look at Mac, and I'm like, dude, I like you, you like me, do you want to hold hands? and I can't tell you what he said in church, but it was essentially like, get away from me and don't talk to me for the next 3 days. I mean, that's essentially what he said to me, right? There was no cultural context for us, not just as Americans, but even in that culture inherent in the military, there was no cultural context that I could even say to him, dude, I just want you to know I love you, I'm for you, I'm with you, I'll give my life for you. There was no way to communicate that. I could say everything up to, I love you. Not allowed, right? Even though I did, and I think he felt the same way for me. The book of Romans, the book of 1 Corinthians, the book of 2 Corinthians, the book of 1 Thessalonians, all command us as Christians to do what? Greet one another with a holy kiss. That's not a thing around here, is it? I went to a Pentecostal church in Florida one time, and My mom and my little sister had moved to Florida. They were attending that church, and my wife and I and our kids were down there visiting, and so we went to church with them, and the greeter was standing at the door, and it's this kind of burly guy, and I walk up, he sticks his hand out, I stick my hand out, he shakes my hand, he pulls me in. Next thing I know, I'm getting the full-on bro hug, right? And he plants a big kiss on my cheek, and I'm thinking, okay, that just happened, right? And then he like turns his cheek to me like I'm supposed to kiss him back. I'm like, I'm okay, dude, I'm fine, I'm good. Listen, I'm not advocating for kissing necessarily here, because the reality is, I've shared this with you before, if I'm kissing you and you're not part of my family, it probably means that you're dying, okay? It's just the reality. I mean, I've visited many people in the hospital and near their death and so on, and I will pray with them. I'll put my forehead on their forehead. I will tell them that I love them. I will kiss them on the forehead. And so I'm like the angel of death, right? I've visited people in the hospital before, and I'm leaving, and they'll be like, "Don't kiss me. I think I'm going to come out of here." I'm like, "That's okay. It's good," right? These things, these cultural considerations, they do matter. And so, what are culturally accepted expressions of intimacy and friendship and affection in American culture, especially among men? I get it, the rules are a little bit different between women, but what are these culturally acceptable signs of affection among men here in America? We want to help you out this morning.
Pastor Doug?
Yeah.
Is a bro hug okay?
A bro hug's okay. Come on up, Dan. Let's show
right
folks
now.
what we're talking
Okay.
about.
All right.
Come on up. Dan's going to help
Wow.
me out this morning. We're going to teach all of you a little something here. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, scoop. No,
Yeah,
listen, that's not it.
That's not
okay?
it.
That is not it.
Awkward.
Anytime you're coming
Okay.
in for a hug like this, flag on the play, right? That is wrong.
It just ain't working.
It ain't working.
Rule number 1, okay? Firm handshake. All right? It's got to be firm, okay? So, rule number 2, always go left, right? Okay? Rule number 3, all right, is you go over the top with the shoulder. This is for guys, and the hand has to stay above the waist, okay?
It's for two-handed.
Yep.
Up
None
here.
of this,
Hey.
Whoa, sorry. All right, so, and then to top it off, okay, both feet have to remain on the ground, okay? I'm going to demonstrate the wrong way to do this, okay? Making sure nobody has their cameras or their phones for pictures.
We're live streaming.
That's okay. Okay.
On the
ready?
internet
Ready?
forever.
That just does not work.
Doesn't
okay?
work.
That just does not work, so.
And the reason why you always go left, because if someone accidentally goes right,
No eye contact either during the hug, okay?
that's right.
All right. All right, we'll do an official, the way it's supposed to be done. Love you, man.
Love you too. All right. Silly, but the reality is that there has to be culturally acceptable forms of affection, expressions of affection. I asked Dan to come up and help me with that. One, because some of you may have been here like 10 years ago, and he did something very similar when men were first starting to show those kinds of signs of affection to one another here at Breezeport, because it was not our norm, right? I mean, Breezeport Baptist Church was, for the long part of its history, what I would refer to, what has been referred to as kind of high church, right? It's suit and tie, it's ladies wear dresses, it's, it's the handshake only. It's not these forms of these expressions of intimacy, affection, love. And I think that just needed to change. The other reason I asked Dan to come up and do that is because he's one of those guys in my life that I know would climb the mountain with me. How do I know that? Because he's done it. Literally climbed, 5 mountains with me and had lunch on top and so on and so forth, but also spiritually and figuratively. We've been there for one another over a lot of years. I remember when Gina went into labor for Johnny prematurely. And we took DJ and Asher to our house, and there were no conversations about how long are we going to keep the boys. There didn't need to be. It was going to be for as long as is necessary. that kind of relationship. I would say in front of I love you, Dan. I mean, I really do. And I have no shame in my heart about saying that to you at all. That's what the Scripture would call us to. That's what it's supposed to look like. I'm thankful that I've got a number of men in my life who are like that. That they make me a better man, they make me a better husband, they make me a better father, they make me a better Christ follower and a better servant to other people. And I hope I have a similar effect on them. And heaven forbid that we should go through our one life, and not have that. So I'm going to argue here that deep relationships are contingent on 4 things. One, there does need to be some affinity. Affinity is just a word I'm using to say there's got to be some common traits there, right? There's got to be something that brings us together. Maybe it's hobbies and something like that. It's the common ground that starts the relationship. But listen, it doesn't even have to be that complicated because we share our humanity with every other human being, which means that we are all sinners and we are all sufferers. And we all know the effects of sin on our lives and others. We all know the effects of suffering on our lives and others. So there is at least the baseline sharing of our humanity to bring us together. As Christians, if you know Christ as your Savior, there is our shared faith in Jesus Christ that ought to be a foundation to bring us together. But there has to be at least something, right, that starts the relationship together one with another. And then there has to be time. There's no shortcuts to building a friendship that's deep in both knowledge and trust. It's one thing to know one another. It's another thing to trust one another. Building trust always takes time. Building knowledge of another person, understanding who they are, understanding their background, understanding their traumas, understanding their hopes and their dreams and their passions, all that takes time. You don't get it off of a single conversation. Then it's opportunity, right? You have to spend that time together in a variety of ways, doing a variety of things. Otherwise, your relationship with that person is completely one-dimensional, and deep relationships are not one-dimensional. That's why, all we can do as a church, we talk about this quite often as staff and with the deacons and so forth. The only thing that we can do is provide you opportunities. We can't make you take any of them. So, we had the baptismal service and the picnic at La Mocha. A lot of fun for the 120, 130, 140 people, whatever that went. We had our church picnic after Intersect, and we had Intersect on Saturday. We had the church picnic on Sunday. Those are opportunities to get people together and just working side by side and then coming together and having a meal together and having some fun together. Life groups start this week, some today, some other days in the week. And life groups are just an opportunity to get people together in close proximity to talk about things related to real life, doing life together. That's why you can call small group ministries anything you want. That's why we call them life groups, because they're meant to be, we're doing life together for the next 9 months. All we can do is give you opportunities. All we can do is put the sign-up sheets up. We can't make you take advantage of any of them, but I beg you that you would. Do I think you should be in a life group? I absolutely do. Do I think there are acceptable reasons not to be? Maybe one, I don't know, maybe 2 acceptable reasons, but I can't think of many. And then the last one is intentionality. Both parties in the relationship need to make the relationship a priority. So let me ask you, if you're a long-time attender here at Breezeport Baptist Church, right? You've been here a while. You would call Breezeport Baptist Church your church. So let me ask you this question. When was the last time you introduced yourself to someone here in the room, like that you don't know? That you initiated a conversation with someone you don't know to introduce yourself to them. When was the last time you ever reached out to someone that you don't know and invited them into your home? Invited them out for a meal, invited them over for dessert. When was the last time you reached out to someone you don't know and said, hey, I'm involved in this life group and it's really great. It's this small group of people and we're just loving on each other. We're getting to know each other. We're doing life together. I think it'd be great if you come with me. When was the last time you reached out to someone you don't know and say, at 9:30 we have these adult Bible fellowships and they're really good and we're learning a lot and I go to this one and it's being taught by this person. It'd be really great if you come with me. I'll save you a seat. If a person can visit Breezeport Baptist Church, first, overcome the hurdle to walk in this place, come in this room, sit for a service, heaven forbid, sit for 2 services, and no one talks to them, no one introduces themselves to them, no one invites them to take another step beyond just a Sunday morning worship service, shame on us. Maybe you're newer to Breezeport Baptist Church. Let me ask you this. Don't be content to just come to a Sunday morning service and think that that's all Breezeport Baptist Church has to offer you. This is the beginning. This is like entry point. This is not the end. It's not even where the greatest degree of discipleship is meant to happen. And I understand, my wife and I and our kids, we were the new folks 26 years ago. And we walked in here only knowing one other family that had invited us. And we sat down amongst a whole group of strangers, and I get it, it was scary. So thankful for Rodney Clark. Rodney was the candy man back in those days. Now we got Dan. We had Rodney back then. We got to know Rodney. In the second week, Rodney remembered our names. It began to feel like home. But we came in thinking, listen, we're not going to be content to just stay in that Sunday morning cycle. And my wife and I just committed together, we're going to say yes to everything that we can. And so that meant Sunday school, and that meant Wednesday nights, and that meant getting involved in service and becoming Sunday school teachers with the 4 and 5-year-olds, and then going on and becoming an adult teacher and Sunday school superintendent and becoming a deacon, and then ultimately for myself becoming an associate pastor, and then 12 years ago becoming the lead pastor. Just being committed, coming here as a stranger, not knowing anyone, but being willing to say yes to whatever we could. If you're newer here, I just would encourage you to have that same mindset. I want to end with this. Proverbs does talk about a friend who sticks closer than a brother. And as Christians, we like to make that about Jesus. And yes, of course, Jesus is a friend. If you know him by faith, he is a friend that sticks closer than a brother. He will never leave us nor forsake us. When you turn from your sin and receive him by faith, he is with you forever. He is for you and he loves you. And I pray that you're loving him more than you ever used to. But when Solomon wrote that in Proverbs, he had other human beings in mind. He had other people in mind. He wasn't thinking about Jesus as the friend that sticks closer than a brother. He was thinking there's friends that we ought to have friends who stick closer than a brother. Scriptures talk about the fact that we're to love one another earnestly. We're to love one another as God has loved us. We're to love one another with a brotherly affection. We're to love one another with a pure heart. Every experience is made more significant because of the people that we share them with. Everyone. Sorrow is made easier. Laughter is made sweeter. Burdens are made lighter when they're shared by people that we know are with us, like they're with us. So if you want to live a life that matters, if you want to live a life that makes a positive impact in the world, you always begin by making a positive impact on the people around you. And that's not simply done by you having many friends, it's by you being a friend to many. I want to say that again. It's not simply because you have many friends, it's because you have chosen to be a friend to many. Caring for many, loving many, serving many, sacrificing for many, praying with many, being there with many. I know that you want it. Are you willing to do what is necessary to have it? I pray that you are.